Hi, Randy Justin here with more conversation about the nature of culture. Thanks for your responses as you shared your insights from the videos that Dr. Steve Ibero recorded for us. Great insights that Steve has. He has a wonderful way to being able to capture all of the details that we typically face when we think about the nature of culture. I'm here in our sanctuary here in Parker, Colorado right now. We're kind of up front. I'll take you for a little brief tour as we focus around. So you'll see the backside with our sanctuary seating area, a really delightful place to be able to worship, a wonderful group of folks. But every group of folks have their own culture, and culture is a dynamic that never really leaves us. And so your insights about the nature of culture and the experiences that you have shared with culture were really extraordinarily helpful. Let me just think about a couple of things out loud for a moment. Some of you spoke about the fear that happens when culture is violated, or when you recognize that you perhaps did something, you bumped up against something that created a situation that was uncomfortable for you or for people that are around you. It does happen. It does happen that way. It's always uncomfortable, but sometimes that is the way that we discover the nature of culture around us. The thing that we want to avoid is the arrogance of being able to say our culture is the right culture, my experience, my journey is the right way, and yours is an inappropriate way. Now, Dr. Ibero talked some about food and time and the way different people experience those dilemmas. Let's talk about time for just a couple of minutes. Let me come down here where we have a chance to be able to see things from a little bit different perspective. As we think about time, I'm one of those people who enjoys people who are on time. My father always said that if the meeting started at 7 o'clock and you were there at 7 o'clock, you were late. And so I've always operated under my father's cultural understanding of the nature of time. So I tend to get places a little early. Now, for some people, that's uncomfortable. That makes them very, very nervous. But what makes me nervous is people who come late. And you know folks who do that. You might be in that category. You might be one of those folks who sees time as something that is really very flexible. So I'm always struggling with the nature of time. And then when you shift that into a broader culture, you discover that time has a whole different meaning when you think about different kinds of deep cultural experiences. Subcultures also pop up. Some of you talked about the nature of subculturals that come into play. So you know that any one individual is not the representative of every single aspect of culture because they're all built into their own separate subcultural identity. I remember a few years ago when I had an opportunity to make a hospital call. I was serving as a volunteer chaplain for the hospital, and they asked me to come because a fellow was about to die. He was on life support, and they were removing him. I walked into his room, discovered a very large man right there, and on one side was one woman holding on to one hand, on the other side another woman on the other hand. Turned out one was his wife and one was his girlfriend, and he was a member of a very large motorcycle gang in the area, and he'd overdosed on narcotics, on drugs, and he was about to be unplugged. And they were fighting, the two women were fighting over who had the rights and the authority and the responsibility to care for his body and his final arrangements. Well, I did his funeral, a very interesting funeral, I might add, and in the process I met some of his friends. One of his friends came up to me and asked me if I would likewise do his funeral. And he told me that he was dying of AIDS. And so I began to have conversation with him. Lo and behold, I developed a conversation with a number of folks in their cultural circle, and some of them began to attend worship. And they began to show up at our little church that was just kind of a basic, moderate Anglo congregation, you know, without any real cultural diversity elements. And they began to just kind of slip in the back, and one by one they would test drive the experience, and our folks in the congregation would try to get a feel for what they could do and how they could reach out. And before long, we had a combined group of one culture. Subcultures coming together make for a great gift. Culture is an interesting dynamic for us. It's a key feature for all of our lives. I think about my first journeys into Romania. So I mentioned earlier that I have long history working in Romania with Romanian orphans and abandoned children. And we have a great number of relationships there. But on the very first experience, it was January of 1993, and I was walking on the streets of the city of Arad, which is on the western border of Romania, almost into Hungary. And I wanted so much to meet people. The communist revolution had happened just in December of 1989. It was still a pretty fresh experience. The country had been through not only revolution and upheaval, but had been through a process of trying to develop a new constitution, a new understanding of who they were as a people. And so there wasn't even a constitution at the time that gave them an identity of how they were going to operate together as a total country. And I was walking down the street, and I wanted to meet people, and I was excited about the journey and just wanted to learn and to discover what was going on. And my friend Romika, who was with me, he said, you know, they all know you're an American. And I go, well, how would they know I'm an American? He said, well, for one thing, you smile too much. You smile too much. You smile on the street. And all of a sudden I realized that nobody on the street was smiling. Everybody was head down and very stern and very serious, because that was the culturally appropriate thing. When those same people got together with you in their home, they were delightful and wonderful and smiling and engaging. But culturally, it was important that they were quiet, head down, and they were almost invisible people because of years of communist oppression. So culture impacts people pretty dramatically, pretty thoroughly. I pray that you will continue to discover more about your own culture and subcultural dynamics, and you will see how your ministry setting for this summer really impacts the people around you. Let me highlight a couple of ingredients. I sent you a message about the Learning Covenant. There's a link there to post your Learning Covenant. Please do that. You'll also find a link that will happen with a download from Chapter 2 of A Many-Colored Kingdom that will come during this week. Hope you'll have a chance to be able to read that quick chapter and to move forward with that. I pray the blessing of the Lord Jesus upon you. And I'm excited about this journey, excited about learning about your ministry settings where you are serving, and excited to learn about the things that we will just discover together. I pray blessing of the Lord Jesus and invite you to know the power of God's love once again in your life. Bless you.